My child. The wedding date was already chosen. The families had already agreed. The rings were already waiting. But one secret from your past was about to destroy everything they thought they knew. Listen carefully, because what happened next was something no one in that room could have imagined. The preparations had been going on for months. Every detail had been discussed, every concern had been answered, and every doubt seemed to have disappeared. Your person sat among relatives who smiled and celebrated what looked like the beginning of a perfect future. Conversations filled the room, laughter echoed through the halls, and everyone believed they were witnessing a love story finally reaching its destination. Yet beneath all the excitement, there was an invisible tension that no one could explain. Your person felt it but could not understand it. It was a strange feeling, a quiet voice deep inside whispering that something important was still unfinished. They tried to ignore it because everything around them pointed toward certainty. The families approved. The future looked secure. The path ahead seemed clear. Yet every time someone mentioned the wedding, your name appeared silently inside their mind like a memory refusing to fade. They never spoke about it. They never explained it. They simply carried it in silence because they believed that chapter of life had already ended. Days passed, and the wedding plans became even more serious. Invitations were discussed. Venues were visited. Relatives traveled long distances to participate in the celebrations. Everyone congratulated your person for making the right choice. Everyone believed they had finally moved forward. But what no one knew was that there was a story hidden beneath years of silence, a story connected to you, a story that had never truly been resolved. Long ago, before misunderstandings separated paths and before circumstances pushed lives in different directions, there had been a promise. It was not written on paper. It was not announced publicly. Most people never even knew it existed. But it lived in the hearts of two people who once believed nothing could come between them. Time changed many things, but it never erased that promise completely. Don't skip. On the evening when both families gathered for one final discussion before officially confirming the wedding, the atmosphere was filled with confidence. Everyone expected a smooth conversation. Tea was served. Smiles filled the room. Plans for the future were discussed openly. Then, without warning, an elderly relative arrived unexpectedly. Their appearance immediately changed the energy in the room. They had been away for years and rarely attended family gatherings. Most people greeted them warmly, assuming they had simply come to offer blessings. No one suspected that they carried information capable of changing everything. They listened quietly as the wedding plans were discussed. They asked a few simple questions. Then they looked directly at your person and asked something that seemed harmless at first. Are you absolutely certain there is nothing unfinished from your past? The room became quiet for a moment. Your person smiled politely and answered that the past was behind them. The relative nodded slowly but did not appear convinced. The conversation continued until the relative reached into an old leather bag and removed a faded envelope. The sight of it immediately caught your person's attention because something about it felt familiar. The envelope looked old, fragile, and untouched for years. The relative placed it gently on the table and explained that it had been hidden for a very long time. No one understood what was happening. Curious relatives leaned closer. The future spouse looked confused. Your person stared at the envelope without moving. Then the relative revealed words that caused every conversation in the room to stop instantly. This belongs to the one person everyone thought had disappeared from this story forever. A heavy silence settled across the room. Your person's hands began to tremble. Because they already knew exactly who that person was. It was you. Don't skip. The envelope had never reached its destination. Years earlier, during a period when confusion, distance, and interference from others had created painful misunderstandings, this message had somehow vanished. Everyone believed the story had ended because neither side ever received the truth. Assumptions replaced facts. Silence replaced communication. Eventually both lives moved in different directions. Yet now, after all those years, the missing piece had suddenly returned. The relative explained that they had discovered it among old belongings while sorting through family possessions. At first they thought it was insignificant, but after reading the names attached to it, they realized its importance. They spent months trying to understand the story before finally deciding that the truth deserved to be revealed before any wedding took place. Your person stared at the envelope as emotions they had buried years ago rushed back with overwhelming force. Every unanswered question returned. Every sleepless night returned. Every memory they thought had faded suddenly became vivid once again. Family members exchanged nervous glances. Some urged them not to open it. Others insisted that the truth should come out. The future spouse watched quietly, sensing that something much larger than a simple letter was unfolding before their eyes. Finally, with shaking hands, your person opened the envelope. Inside was a letter. A letter written years ago. A letter that contained words they were never supposed to miss. The first few lines alone were enough to drain all color from their face. Because everything they had believed about you was wrong. Everything. The accusations they accepted. The rumors they trusted. The reasons they thought you walked away. None of it was true. As they continued reading, tears began forming in their eyes. The room remained completely silent except for the sound of paper trembling in their hands. Each sentence revealed another piece of a story hidden for years. Each paragraph exposed misunderstandings created by people who had their own motives. Each word uncovered sacrifices you had made without expecting recognition. Suddenly the version of events everyone accepted began falling apart. Relatives who once criticized you looked shocked. People who believed they knew the truth realized they had only known fragments. The future spouse watched your person's expression change from confusion to disbelief and from disbelief to heartbreak. Because for the first time, they understood what had really happened. And understanding came too late. Or so everyone thought. Don't skip. The letter ended with one final sentence that no one expected. It was a sentence written years ago, yet it felt as if it had been written that very day. It said that if fate ever revealed the truth, then the choice should belong to the heart rather than fear, pressure, or expectation. Those words echoed through your person's mind long after they finished reading. No one spoke. No one knew what to say. The wedding discussion had completely disappeared. The room that had been full of celebration only an hour earlier now felt frozen in uncertainty. Your person placed the letter down and stared into the distance. They were no longer thinking about invitations, decorations, or wedding plans. They were thinking about every moment they spent believing a lie. They were thinking about every opportunity lost because the truth never arrived. Most of all, they were thinking about you. Hours passed as family members debated what should happen next. Some argued that the wedding should proceed because the past could not be changed. Others believed moving forward without addressing the truth would create even greater pain. Emotions rose. Voices grew louder. Yet through all the arguments, your person remained unusually quiet. They listened to everyone but said very little. Deep inside, a battle was taking place. One path offered certainty and approval. The other path offered questions, risks, and emotions they had tried desperately to bury. Then something unexpected happened. The future spouse stood up. Everyone turned toward them. The room became silent once again. What they said next stunned everyone. They looked directly at your person and calmly said, "If someone's name still has the power to change your face, your voice, and your heart after all these years, then perhaps this decision was never truly mine to win." The entire room froze. No one expected such honesty. No one expected such courage. And no one expected what happened after that. Your person lowered their head as tears finally began falling. Years of buried emotions broke through at once. The walls they built around their hearts started collapsing. Memories returned with unbearable clarity. They remembered conversations they thought were meaningless. They remembered moments they dismissed. They remembered signs they ignored because accepting them would have been too painful. For years they convinced themselves that moving forward was the only option. Yet now the truth stood directly in front of them, refusing to be ignored any longer. Don't skip. That night, after everyone left, your person sat alone holding the letter. Hours passed without sleep. They read every line again and again. Each reading revealed details they had missed before. They imagined how different life might have been if the letter had arrived on time. They imagined conversations that never happened, misunderstandings that could have been prevented, and futures that might have unfolded differently. Regret settled heavily on their heart. But alongside regret came something else. Hope. A feeling they thought had disappeared forever. Because the truth had finally been revealed. And once truth appears, impossible things suddenly become possible. As dawn approached, your person made a decision. It was not a decision based on family pressure. It was not a decision based on fear. For the first time in years, it came directly from the deepest part of their heart. They knew the path ahead would not be easy. Questions remained unanswered. Time had passed. Lives had changed. Yet they could no longer pretend that the secret from the past did not matter. Because it had changed everything. The wedding that seemed certain was no longer certain. The future that seemed planned was no longer planned. And the story everyone thought had ended was only beginning again. Far away, completely unaware of the chaos unfolding, you continued living your life as usual. You had no idea that an old secret had resurfaced. You had no idea that a forgotten letter had shattered years of assumptions. You had no idea that someone who once tried to forget you was now questioning everything they believed. Yet destiny often works in silence before revealing its hand. Long before people understand what is happening, events begin moving into place. And at that very moment, while you believed the chapter was closed forever, the truth was opening a door no one thought could ever open again. A door leading back to you. Do not skip. The sun rose, but your person's world had not returned to normal. While everyone around them expected answers, they had none. The letter remained on the table where it had changed everything the night before, yet its presence felt larger than any person in the house. Every time they looked at it, they felt as though years of their life were being rewritten in front of their eyes. The wedding that once seemed so certain now felt strangely distant, almost like a future planned for someone else. Family members continued calling, asking questions, demanding decisions, and offering opinions, but your person could barely hear them. Their mind was trapped between the past they thought they understood and the truth that had suddenly emerged from the shadows. For years they had convinced themselves that you chose to leave. They had repeated that belief so many times that it eventually felt like fact. Whenever memories appeared, they pushed them away by reminding themselves that you had made your choice. It was painful, but it allowed them to move forward. Now that foundation had collapsed completely. The letter revealed that you had fought harder than anyone realized. It revealed that messages had been hidden, conversations interrupted, and truths buried before they ever had a chance to reach the right people. What hurt the most was not discovering that they had been misled. What hurt the most was realizing how many years had been lost because of it. The house remained tense throughout the morning. Some relatives insisted that the letter was simply an old memory and should not affect a future that was already arranged. Others argued that ignoring such a revelation would be unfair to everyone involved. Every discussion seemed to end in disagreement. Yet your person remained silent. The louder everyone else became, the quieter they became. Deep inside, something was changing. The certainty they once carried had disappeared. In its place was a growing need to know the full truth. By afternoon they could no longer sit still. They picked up the letter once more and studied every detail. The handwriting. The date. The small marks left by time. Then they noticed something they had overlooked before. Attached to the final page was a name. A witness. Someone who had known what happened years ago but had never spoken. Someone who might still be alive. Their heartbeat quickened. Because for the first time, there was a way to verify everything. There was a way to learn the truth directly. And there was a chance that the story was even bigger than the letter revealed. Don't skip. Without telling anyone where they were going, your person left the house and began searching for answers. The journey took hours. Roads that once felt familiar now seemed different. Every mile brought more memories. Places where conversations happened. Places where hopes were shared. Places where dreams began before everything fell apart. The closer they came to finding the witness, the stronger their emotions became. Finally, they arrived. The witness was older now, carrying the weight of years on their face, but their memory remained sharp. At first they seemed hesitant to talk. They had spent a long time avoiding the subject. Yet when your person showed them the letter, something changed. The witness looked at the pages, closed their eyes for a moment, and released a deep breath. Then they said words that sent chills through your person's entire body. I always wondered if the truth would find its way back. The conversation that followed lasted for hours. Piece by piece, the hidden story emerged. The witness explained that years ago, powerful influences from both sides had interfered. Some people believed they were protecting their families. Others acted out of pride. A few acted out of fear. Regardless of their reasons, the result was the same. Communication was blocked. Messages disappeared. Assumptions spread. Two people who should have been speaking directly were instead hearing distorted versions of reality. Your person's hands shook as they listened. Because every new detail matched the letter. Every new detail confirmed that you had never abandoned them. Every new detail revealed sacrifices they never knew existed. Then came the revelation that changed everything once again. The witness revealed that there had been one final message. A message far more important than the letter. A message no one ever received. Your person's heart nearly stopped. What message? They asked. The witness looked at them carefully before answering. The message where everything was explained. Silence followed. The kind of silence that feels louder than any noise. Because if that message had arrived, the entire future might have been different. The entire separation might never have happened. And the wedding being planned today might not even exist. Don't skip. As evening approached, your person returned home carrying more questions than answers. Yet one thing was now undeniable. The version of the past they believed for years was false. The future they were preparing for suddenly felt built on a misunderstanding. Family members immediately surrounded them, demanding updates. They wanted certainty. They wanted decisions. They wanted the situation resolved. Instead, your person shocked everyone. They announced that no final wedding decision would be made until every hidden truth had been uncovered. The room exploded with reactions. Some relatives were furious. Others were stunned. A few quietly supported the decision. But no one expected what happened next. Among the crowd stood someone who had remained silent throughout the entire ordeal. Someone who had listened carefully to every conversation. Someone connected to the events of years ago. Slowly, they stepped forward. Their face was pale. Their eyes were filled with guilt. And then they confessed something that caused the entire room to fall silent. They admitted that years ago they had seen one of the messages. Not all of it. Not enough to understand its importance. But enough to know it existed. Enough to know it never reached its destination. Gasps filled the room. The confession hit everyone like a thunderbolt. Because it meant the hidden story was no longer speculation. It was real. The interference was real. The lost communication was real. And the consequences were devastating. Your person felt their knees weaken. For years they had blamed you. For years they had carried disappointment. For years they had tried to move on. Now they were discovering that much of their pain had been built upon incomplete information. The realization was almost unbearable. That night, sleep became impossible. They sat alone once again. The wedding photos that families had discussed lay untouched nearby. The ring designs remained forgotten. The future that once felt secure now seemed uncertain. Yet through all the confusion, one thought refused to leave. You. Not the version of you created by rumors. Not the version shaped by misunderstandings. The real you. The person hidden beneath years of silence. The person they never truly stopped wondering about. Don't skip. Meanwhile, something unusual was happening on your side as well. For reasons you could not explain, memories were resurfacing. Small reminders appeared unexpectedly throughout your day. A song you had not heard in years. A place that suddenly crossed your mind. A conversation you thought you had forgotten. None of it made sense. Yet each memory carried the same feeling. Something was changing. Something was moving. Something long buried was beginning to awaken. You tried to ignore it. You told yourself the past was over. You reminded yourself that life had moved on. But deep inside, a strange feeling continued growing stronger. As if a chapter you thought was closed was somehow reopening. As if answers were finally beginning to travel toward you. As if destiny itself had become tired of silence. Back at your person's home, another discovery was waiting. Late into the night, while searching through old family documents connected to the letter, they found a small notebook hidden inside a storage box. It appeared ordinary at first glance. Old pages. Faded ink. Nothing unusual. Then they opened it. And everything changed again. Because written inside were dates. Names. Conversations. Records. Evidence. Someone had documented events from years ago. Someone had kept track of things they were never supposed to remember. And among those pages appeared your name again. Not once. Not twice. But over and over. Each entry revealed another hidden piece of the puzzle. Each page exposed another secret. Each detail brought your person closer to understanding what really happened. And on the final page, written in trembling handwriting, was a sentence so shocking that your person stared at it for several minutes before they could even breathe normally. Because the sentence suggested that the separation between you was never supposed to happen at all. And if what was written there was true, then the biggest secret had not been revealed yet. It was still waiting. And the truth about you was far more powerful than anyone imagined.